This is China's Chengde mountain resort. Most people think this was just a summer getaway. It was not. It was Imperial China's summer capital. Every year, the Qing emperors left the Forbidden City and brought half the court to Chengde, reviewing memorials, meeting nobles, and managing border and foreign affairs. Why did the Manchus build a second center of power deep in the hills? Today, we will walk from the palaces and uncover the logic behind it. Alright, let's lay the map on the table. Chengde Mountain Resort sits in today's Chengde, Hebei province. It's about 200 kilometers from Beijing, but already in the Yunshan mountains. Higher altitude, cooler air, and far more comfortable summers. It was closer to a strategic frontier, Mongolia. From here, the Chinese Qing emperors could still control the capital while moving meetings and diplomacy with Mongol leaders closer to the steppe and the northern corridors. Chengde Mountain Resort is, at its core, a palace. By Qing Imperial Convention, ordinary Manchu and Han officials and Mongol princes could not just ride in. They had to dismount their houses or step down from their sedan chairs. On both sides of the palace gate, there are dismounting steles inscribed in Manchu, Chinese, Tibetan, and Mongolian, telling visitors exactly that they must dismount or step down respectfully. The dismounting stele carved in 4 languages also reflects the Qing Empire's multi-ethnic character. Building a palace in Chengde made sense for climatic reasons. In 1644, the Qing entered China proper and began using the Forbidden City in Beijing. At that time, the de facto ruler was Prince Regent Duergun. After living in Beijing for a period, Duergun found the winters tolerable, but the summers simply too hot. From then on, he hoped to build a summer residence somewhere between Beijing and the Qing homeland in the northeast, a seasonal imperial lodge where the court could escape the heat. But it was not until the reign of his nephew, the Kangxi Emperor, the summer imperial residence was officially launched in 1703. As one of the empire's official imperial palaces, many symbols and images of the capital were also brought here. The main palace gate of the mountain resort is called the Lizheng Gate, a name that carries the sense of radiant beauty and also upright, proper authority. And in Beijing, the front gate, Zhengyang Gate, was once also known as Lizheng Gate. This overlap in naming again suggests that in Qing China, Chengde, like Beijing, took on the function of a political center. The most striking feature of Lizheng Gate is its plaque. It is written in 5 scripts: Manchu, Mongolian, Chinese, Tibetan, and the Weaver Turkey script. These 5 scripts represent the empire's major peoples at the time, and these 5 major ethnic groups form the ethnic foundation of China today. Passing through Lizheng Gate, we still haven't reached the emperor's walking area. We have only entered the first checkpoint of a ceremonial corridor, the Outer Wumen Gate. This space outside the Outer Wumen was where ordinary imperial officials handled business and waited to be summoned. After passing through the Outer Wumen Gate, we entered the Inner Wumen area. Since I filmed this video during China's summer vacation, the place is absolutely packed. Students everywhere along with their parents. But this is actually a place that symbolizes the Qing dynasty's martial tradition. In this very square, the emperor would hold inspections, watching the princes demonstrate their skills in horseback riding and archery. A reminder that the dynasty must never forget its martial tradition. On the eastern side of the square stands a powerful bronze lion, finely crafted, imposing, and solemn, an emblem of the Qing Empire at its height. Above the main entrance of the Inner Wumen hangs a plaque reading 避暑山庄. In Chinese, these characters literally mean a mountain resort for escaping the summer heat. written in the Kangxi Emperor's own calligraphy. In traditional China, the building immediately behind the main gates is always the main hall of the entire palace complex. Behind the inner Wumen stands the Danbo Jingcheng Hall. This is the core of the mountain resort's palace complex, the place where the emperor held court, handled state affairs, and received high-ranking Mongol princes and foreign envoys. In function, it closely resembles the Qianjing Palace in Beijing's Forbidden City. The name Danbo Jingcheng carries the ideal the Qing rulers set for themselves to remain detached from fame and profit, yet be relevant and sincere toward heaven and toward the responsibilities of governing. Historically speaking, the rulers of the Qing Empire were indeed among the most diligent emperors in Chinese history. This magnificent wooden ceremonial hall was built with golden thread Nanmu wood. In traditional China, Nanmu wood symbolized prestige and was also believed to ward off evil, so it was frequently used in Imperial architecture. Even the window panels feature Nanmu carvings of bats. Because in Chinese, the word for bat sounds like fortune, making it a classic symbol of blessing and good luck. Inside the hall, the most striking sight is the Imperial throne. Its design carries strong Manchu, Mongol, and Tibetan influences. The bright yellow cushions and the black rest made it easy for the emperor to sit cross-legged, a posture that echoes the Manchu people's earlier mobile hunting and fishing life beyond the Great War. The more relaxed posture also helped narrow the distance between the emperor and officials from different peoples. During the Kangxi reign in 1701, the Qing state began compiling a massive encyclopedia known as the Gujing Tushujiceng, literally complete collection of illustrations and writings from the earliest to current times, a sweeping official effort to organize traditional knowledge. And on the bookshelves to the east and west of the throne, this monumental work is preserved in full. Continuing along the central axis, our next stop is the emperor's private study, the Sizhi study. At its core, this was a military command room. Its name comes from the Qianlong emperor. Sizhi, the foreknowings, means a ruler should grasp what is subtle and what is clear, and know when to be soft and when to be firm. In other words, it's about seeing both details and the bigger picture. In 1787, the Lin Shuangwen rebellion broke out in Taiwan, driven by local corruption and sharp class tensions between peasants and landlords. When this news reached the emperor, Qianlong was in Chengde, staying at the mountain resort. Here, he convened military discussions and deployed forces to cross the strait and suppress the uprising. Friends who have watched my earlier tomb episodes may already know this. In both China's classical palace architecture and its imperial mausoleums, the layout is typically divided into two parts: the front court and the real residence. The front court is where state business is handled, where rituals are performed. The real residence is where the emperor and the empress rest, and in the case of tombs, where their spirits are meant to dwell. The palace zone of the mountain resort is no exception. The row of buildings we are looking at right now is the dividing line between the front court and the real residence. At the same time, it served as living quarters for the accompanying eunuchs and palace maids, known as the Wansui Zhaofang, literally His Majesty's duty rooms. And beyond this line, behind these buildings, begins the real residence area of the palace complex. And in a quiet, almost invisible way, the Qing dynasty's shift from strength to decline also seems to be reflected along this very boundary. Behind the Wansui Zhaofang begins the first hall of the real residence area, Yanbo Zhishuang Hall. This was the monarch's main bedroom and resting space. The name is fascinating. In Chinese, it invokes the scene of shimmering water, misty air, and refreshing mountain and lake views, something that clears the mind and lifts the spirit. Here we are mainly describing the breathtaking scenery of Chengde. Yet, this palace witnessed not only the empire's glory, but also its campers. The Jiaqing Emperor, the fifth Qing ruler to govern China, reigned from 1796 to 1820. In the early years of his reign, the empire was shaken by the severe White Lotus Rebellion. After suppressing it, Jiaqing could only struggle to keep the state afloat. He was relatively overweight and loved drinking. On September 2nd, 1820, he died suddenly, struck by a heat-triggered cardiovascular and cerebrovascular crisis. On this bed, in the western warm chamber of Yanbo Zhishuang Hall. At that moment, China's defeat in the Opium War and the cession of Hong Kong to Britain was only 22 years away. 41 years later, in 1861, his grandson, the Xianfeng Emperor, the seventh Qing ruler to govern China, came here as well. By then, Beijing had already been occupied by the Anglo-French forces. Xianfeng fled to the mountain resort with his two empresses, Cixi and Sian, and the young prince Zaichun. On August 22, Xianfeng also died on the same bed of Yanbo Zhishuang Hall, ending his life at just 30 years old. At that moment, the 1911 Republican Revolution was only 50 years away. So this single hall became a silent witness to the full downward arc of the Qing Empire. Behind the Yanbo Zhishuang Hall, there is a two-story building called Yunshan Shengdi. In Chinese, the name means something like a scenic place above the clouds and mountains, and its design is just as clever. To reach the second floor, there is no conventional staircase. Instead, you climb up from the east using steps built into an artificial rockery, an ingenious solution that reflects the creativity of Qing craftsmen. The Qing era was also a golden age for traditional Chinese theater, with Peking opera, Jingcheng, becoming especially prominent. And down here on the first floor was where Qing emperors came to watch performances. On August 21, 1861, the day before the Xianfeng Emperor died, this 30-year-old ruler was still sitting here in front of the stage, watching what would become his final palace opera performance. The next day, he passed away. The Xianfeng Emperor was the last male monarch in Chinese history to hold real power. After his death, his only son, Aixing Zaichun, inherited the throne, becoming the Tongzhi Emperor. Tongzhi's adoptive mother, the Empress Consort of Xianfeng, Lady Niu Hulu, was honored as Empress Dowager Cian, and Tongzhi's birth mother, Consort Yi, Lady Ye Henala, was honored as Empress Dowager Cixi. And it was at this moment that Cixi's stormy political life truly began. In the real residence area of the palace zone, just east of Yanbo Zhishuang Hall, there is a small courtyard, the residence of the Empress, later Empress Dowager Cian, known as the Eastern Side Courtyard. Today, it has been converted into a broadcasting room and is not open to visitors. On the western side courtyard was where Empress Dowager Cixi lived. Here, a dramatic coup is about to unfold. In 1861, before Xianfeng died, he established a joint regency. Two Empress Dowagers and 8 Manchu Han regent ministers would govern together. No major decision could take effect without the agreement of all 10, which greatly constrained the two Empress Dowagers' authority. At the same time, Prince Gong Yixing, Xianfeng's brother, once even seen as a possible contender for the throne, was completely pushed out of the political process. And it was in a small room within the western side courtyard that Empress Dowager Cixi and Empress Dowager Cian secretly summoned Prince Gong Yixing and ordered a coup to arrest the 8 regent ministers. With that, Empress Dowager Cixi formally stepped onto the center stage of Chinese politics and began the nearly half a century of power that would define the final era of the Qing dynasty. Now we have finished working the central axis of the mountain resource palace zone. But beyond the axis, there are also sections of palace ruins, destroyed by war and by fire over the course of history. The largest structure in this area once stood on the eastern side of the palace zone, Qing Pavilion. This was also a place where the emperor watched the culture theater. In form, it closely resembled the Chang'an Pavilion stage inside the Forbidden City and the Dehe Garden Grand Theater in Beijing's Summer Palace. In 2017, when President Donald Trump visited China, he watched the Peking Opera at the Chang'an Pavilion in the Forbidden City. But Qing Pavilion here in Chengde was not so lucky. In 1945, a fire broke out and the entire magnificent wooden theater was burned to the ground. From 1703 to 1790, the construction and the expansion of Chengde Mountain Resort lasted for 88 years. From the start of construction to the moment the Xianfeng Emperor died here in 1861, 159 years passed, spanning the Qing dynasty's rise to its zenith and its descent into decline. And it was not just a palace complex. It also included the surrounding plain zone and the lake zone, a landscape of mountains and water, breathtaking in every direction. And in world history, the most famous example of building a second political center outside the capital, both to control and win over allies, and to display imperial power, is Versailles in France. East or West, monarchs used the same strategy to write their own glory. But China's context was also uniquely multi-ethnic and multi-religious. That's why, around the Altar Age of the mountain resort, the Qing emperors built 8 imperial temples to win over Tibet and the various Mongol tribes. In the next episode, we will step inside the largest of them all, Putuo Zongcheng Temple, built to impress the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan world, and uncover the stories of imperial rule hidden within its walls. See you next time.